welcome everybody. Christina Merkley here. Wonderful to have you here. This is an introduction to visual coaching, working visually, doing process work with individuals. Could be couples, partners, families, small groups as well. We've got folks from all over the world, so I'm glad those of you who have made it on here live and joined us. We've just had limited seats, and we've had like 3 or 4 times the amount of people sign up for this. So we'll be recording this. In fact, our recording is rolling right now. And hopefully, screen-wise, you're able to see I'm sharing a presentation. There's different options here. If you're not familiar with WebEx, just take your mouse, push it up to the top of your screen, and it'll bring a presentation panel into view. And there's different options on there for your audio and for your screen. So you should be seeing a slide deck that I'm sharing. I've got most of you muted as you're coming on here just to keep our lines nice and clean and crisp. You can unmute yourself at any time. I will have different opportunities for Q&A as we go along through the material. I just also want to let you know that there's a chat function. So again, moving that mouse to the top of your screen will bring in the panel into view, the instructions, and you just click the chat function. And if you do want to ask a question, you can put your question in there. You can dialogue amongst each other. And I'll have certain breaks as we go along here, and I'll take a quick look at the chat. If you do have a question for me, it's helpful if you wrote it in capital letters. That way it'll pop out and I can find questions easier that way. Okay, so who do we have here? All sorts of people come. There's probably 3 different people or types of people on the session today. Number one, there's going to be different kinds of process types. So if you're a consultant, a facilitator, a trainer, and our coaches, therapists, maybe even scribes and graphic recorders, because I'm known in all the genres of working, not just coaching. So we've got process types online. We've got different kinds of artistic types, so maybe illustrators, artists, designers, videographers, that sort of thing. And then we've got people who are yourselves, right? Just people. You're here from across the globe. You have different kinds of interests. Maybe you're curious about being coached in a visual way. You're curious about Shifted. You're curious about me, whatever it might be. And you found your way here as well. So just welcome to everybody. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to try to hit this presentation at all these 3 different levels. And you can certainly ask me questions as we go along, and I'll stick around afterwards if we have Q&A questions as well. So you're in the right place if these next slides that I show you kind of make you salivate. If you are a marker type, if you are into any kind of markers, and just these are the kind of goodies and the things that are tricks of the trade. Come on in if you're coming on. Let's just get you muted. Our good old Prismacolors, our pastels. This is my kit bag. So I've had many, many different kit bags over the years. This is my current beat-up one, lunch bag, really full of markers and all sorts of doodads that I need when I'm working live. Increasingly, I'm working like I am with you right now. Most of my work is shifting to virtual, and I'm going to be sharing some of the different things that we can use as coaches and therapists and process holders for our clients using the great technology that's now available to us. And doodles galore fit their way into this work. If you're an artist, sometimes you have to let go of what you know how to do, because this is not just art per se, this is coupled in with process work, right? So we're holding space for our clients, we're helping them think and reflect through different kinds of things. And we can't just slow down and take our time drawing everything perfectly. We have to be very fast and very quick. So this kind of cartoony iconography is the style that we tend to go for. Doesn't mean that you can't bring in your own flair and your own way of being. People certainly do. There's lots of ways to play with this work. When I'm crafting this presentation, I do these kinds of free webinars every once in a while. It's been a couple years. I think it's been about 3 years since I did one specifically on visual coaching. So I think about what are the outcomes that you'd like to have out of this, and hopefully I've hit it right. I encounter a lot of people and ask a lot of questions and different kinds of interviews and stuff with people who are curious about this work, and this seems to be the things that I thought would fit in terms of hitting your desired outcomes. First off, to understand visual coaching, it's helpful to understand the context that it sits within. And that's, I call it interactive visuals. These aren't just visuals, static visuals. It's not art, like I said. It's about using it interactively with people to help them think and feel and do various things. So I'm going to set the scene about what interactive visuals is first, because there's 4 main ways of working, help you understand those. And then we're going to really zero in on visual coaching and giving you different kinds of examples. I'm going to show so many. This was the hard part, actually, in this pulling together this slide deck, was how to cull it down. I've been in this work for 20 years now. You'll see from the various pictures of me over the years that are in this deck. And, you know, there's a lot of things to show, and there's a lot of variety to the work. So I'm sharing a lot of different examples just to help you see some of the landscape and what's possible, and hopefully inspire your thinking and some of the things that you might already be doing. And I'll end as well. Obviously, I'm a teacher, I'm a mentor in this work. I have various different kinds of programs. So I'll conclude at the end here about upcoming learning opportunities. So we're going to have about 90 minutes here with tons of information. Come on in, those of you who are joining us. Let's get you muted. Get those lines muted. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to show you this visual bio in a second. I just flashed up this funny old picture from back in the day when I created it. This is about 4 feet by 14 feet or so, a wall-sized mural. And just to give you context here about what this piece looks like, now I'm going to flash it on the screen, and it allows me to tell you the story of me and my trajectory here in this work and how I came to be doing it, and give you a little bit about how visual coaching has emerged here. So this is a timeline moving from left to right, and hopefully you can see I'm going to try to flick around my mouse here as a little pointer. This particular online program doesn't have the greatest in terms of being able to point things for you. If I was there in person, I'd be touching and using my hand to draw your eye to these charts because we want to make them interactive. So this is a push chart, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to push it in different places to push this information that I want to share with you. So most of you know I'm here in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I've got an academic background in terms of a master's degree in organizational development and transformation. My undergrad underneath that is English, my love of words. We use words in this work, and we write them down. I'm also connected from way back when, from my graduate days there with the Growth Consultants International in San Francisco. If you're interested in the visual way of working, you may already be aware of the Grove. And they're a niche consulting firm. I was lucky enough to connect with them right out of grad school, and this was 20 years ago. And David Sibbett, hats off to him. He's one of my early mentors in the work. We've got 2 bands happening here, the stuff all in green with the light green background, and this band down below here with the orange. The upper one in the green is just corporate work, group work, the facilitation, consulting aspect, OD, change management side of things, just different clients I've worked with over the day. And then this is the one we're really focusing on in this particular webinar is the work with individuals. And for me, that began in the 90s, getting my coach training there with CTI. Some of you might be CTI coaches as well, Coaches Training Institute, back in late 90s, getting into that millennium period. And what happened for me was, because I worked already in a visual way in my day job with organizations and with corporations and things, I couldn't help but take visual graphic kinds of notes when I was learning how to coach. I also have a background in hypnotherapy, NLP, different kinds of growth processes. And every time I learn a new medium, I'd of course be taking my visual notes, and people would be intrigued by that and attracted by that. And when I began to coach, I saw, again, how much people resonate with this visual way of working, and I literally had a lineup behind me. When we would do different exercises in class, people would want to work with me because I was the gal who was doing these cool visual summary notes of what came out of the session. Often with coaching, counseling, therapy, people are speaking, and it's very auditory based. And so it's very helpful when you bring in a visual medium. And also when you get people involved in creating the medium as well, getting the kinesthetic in there, it can just really up the ante in terms of people getting more out of their sessions and really understanding what's happening and what ahas they're coming to, and literally see them, right, and have that visual record of things as they're moving along. Okay. I just got to get folks voted as you're coming in.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't hear until now. And
welcome. Yeah, we'll get you muted. You're all okay now by the sounds of it. From Romania, very cool. So all sorts of companies have worked in all sorts of industries with the corporation, so a lot of technology, healthcare, education, also different kinds of retail, education as well, different kinds of universities, colleges throughout North America. And these were always two tracks for me. They still are. More and more coaching is what's taking my focus these days, and mentoring other people in the visual skills overall. I've created several kind of companies. Make Your Mark was my first one, and then it's taking us up to Shift a Coach, which you probably know me through nowadays. And training, skills marketing, marketing mentoring, helping people build their businesses, their practices, really their identities around this work and around whatever they're doing. It doesn't have to be visual skills. My coaching practice is I'm an entrepreneur, solo, small business, so I tend to attract people who are that as well, or who want to be. My clientele tends to pay for their coaching themselves, although sometimes their businesses may, if they're internal in an organization, may pay for it, but most often they pay for it themselves. I'm a very deep spiritual person. I like to go deep. I'm a deep diver. I tend to attract people who are like that. My shifted process is very deep as well. And because of the visual creative way that I work, I tend to attract people who are like that as well. So cultural creative is a term for that. You may or may not be familiar with that term. Large percentage of the population, researchers are telling us, are actually cultural creatives. We all think we're alone, but actually there's a big bunch of us. We're very much together. I mostly coach women in the groups that I run, and I get more of a higher percentage with men with private coaching. We do get some men in the coaching groups, but not as much as what shows up in the private groups. Tends to be mid-range in terms of life, from the 30s to 60s, North America, European, some Australia, Asia. And now with being able to work online, just the globe has really, really opened up for me. Unfortunately, I only speak one language, so I'm limited to working with people in English. Visuals, of course, is a universal language, but I'm having to bring in some spoken word, obviously, as well. And I'm a bit of a renegade, so I tend to attract people who are leading edge, a little bit of renegades. They're outside the box. They're on that cusp in terms of innovation. Sometimes they're overcoming oppression as well. That tends to be a lot of what I work with and has been my path as well. Just really getting in there and deeply valuing yourself and your right brain as much as the left brain. Just to give you a sense of where I come to in this work and what my particular practice is, because there's so many ways you can apply these skills across a variety of practices and focuses. What's in front of you right now, I'm going to go through this quite quickly. I have several things on my YouTube channel, and those of you who have been in classes with me previously, you've probably seen this chart that's in front of you. This is another, if this was in person, it's 4 feet by 8 feet, so it's a really big, impactful chart. Looks a little different when we're working on the webinars. So here is a little interactivity gauge, and this is how I like to explain the 4 applications. In my opinion, this particular niche field, we're actually, visual coaching is a niche within a niche. So the higher order niche is the interactive visuals work overall. And I cut the cards. It falls in 4 different ways. There's things that you can do in your studio ahead of time, so you're not working live. You're actually, maybe you have worked with a group live, or you will be, so you're creating different kinds of documents or whatever it might be to assist people. You're doing that in the sanctity of your studio ahead of time, so that's a little bit of a different nature of a visual animal. And then there's something called visual recording. We're starting to move up the interactivity gauge, getting a little more into the push and pull areas. That's often known as scribing. There's a lot of misunderstanding about these terms, and people use them interchangeably when they're really not. So visual coaching, or sorry, visual recording tends to be off at the side. You're not really integrated into what's happening process-wise. You're kind of off on the side. You're taking notes of it. You're summarizing it, but you're not necessarily integrated in. Mostly panels, large kinds of conferences, speakers. People use graphic recording and scribing for that. Now, the further side of the chart here, as we're moving into the right-hand side, where we're getting into true process work, this is where I really like to play, and this is where I think the work is most powerful. And there is process work with groups, so you're doing different kinds of interventions with groups. That's visual facilitation. I use the terms visual and graphic interchangeably, so graphic facilitation or visual facilitation. And that's very pull-oriented, so you're co-creating with your clients. You may have blank sheets of paper and stuff is organically emerging from that group, or you may be driving it in a very structured way with templates. And then the 4th area is that visual coaching. It's still over in that pull side of the chart where you're very interactive, you're co-building this, it's emergent with your clients, but instead of working with a group, it's much more intimate. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the visual or the graphic coaching, therapy, whatever it is you might be doing with that person, or it could be partners, pairs, or very, very, small groups. Okay, so studio work, visual recording, visual facilitation, and visual coaching. We're going to talk about the 4th one today. If you are interested in the group work, I have a whole other webinar that I've done similar to this where we did a 90 minutes. Go to my site, sign up on the left-hand side. You'll get access to that if you don't already have access to another video that will explain more about the group process work. Today I'm going to be talking about the process work with individuals. Already explained these ones. Custom studio work. We can do some custom things with our coaching clients. So, or therapy clients, again, whatever process work it is you're doing with those individuals, there are different kinds of things that you can create ahead of time that you bring into the room with that client to help communicate and push different kinds of information. Sometimes it might be a video even. If you're aware of the explainer videos that are very popular the last couple of years, those in my opinion fall into the studio work category. And then here's the visual recording, the visual facilitation. Just to give you some eye candy for this, if you've never seen this stuff in action in person, you can see with these photos that I have up on the screen, these various vintages here, look for that large sheet of paper up on the wall. So on this top left-hand side here, I'm off on the side doing graphic recording. This top one, you can see this little corporate group here, and I'm doing strategic planning with them. So I'm doing facilitation. I'm leading the process as opposed to being off on the side taking notes. These are a bunch of graphic recorders gathered at one of our conferences. We have a conference called the International Forum of Visual Practitioners, IFVP. They meet once a year. So this is a photo from back in the day with the Santa Fe group. and me standing at the wall, and you can see the big old chart behind me. Large, large, large when you're working with groups. When you're working with individuals, you can work large as well. You're just working with one person, so it might not be quite as large as what you're doing paper-wise with a group of people. And then there's also all sorts of things you can do with smaller size paper. That's in person. And now, again, what I've been saying with technology, that there's a lot that can happen with using technology, where you don't even have to be in the same room. You're not using paper, but you're using different kinds of digital tablets and different programs to allow you to mimic the paper over distance. Tons of different kinds of ways to coach, right? There's business coaching, there's life coaching, there's therapy, there's counseling, there's different kinds of personal growth practices and faith and spirituality practices. So all those things, visuals can be applied to that. And I'm increasingly seeing too, besides those typical places that you would think that this would be applied, I'm also seeing financial advisors, mediators, lawyers, disability specialists. Those kinds of people are starting to really show up in my visual coaching certification program and the other programs I use as well. So these are other professionals who work with individuals, maybe not in the therapeutic process context in the way we usually think about it, but they have their processes, they have their ethical things that they're doing with individuals, and they're finding that using these tools is helpful for them as well for more effectively doing what they're doing. Maybe you've been a client where you have experienced this methodology. Maybe you're a practitioner who's starting to weave this into your practice. The brain researchers tell us that 87% of people are visual thinkers. Different researchers cut the cards in different ways, but usually a big old whopping percentage of people prefer to interact and think and learn and retain information visually. So, duh, it totally makes sense to work in that method. It boosts clarity, it increases retention, it heightens the ability to deal with complexity when you bring all these different aspects of a person literally up in front of them, visible. They can start to make connections and see things that they may not have done prior to just having it all swirling inside of their head and their body. So by doing that, it decreases confusion and conflict within themselves and maybe even within other people. And it increases, just like with the groups, it increases their commitment, their accountability, their buy-in to whatever it is that they're saying in therapy and coaching that they're going to be doing. And the really wonderful thing with working visually is that it's easier to share and communicate. So if a person, I work a lot with people creating their visions and their action plans and dealing with their resistance. So we have all these visual artifacts. They can take those visual artifacts to the people that are important to them, whether those are personal people, their family, their friends, or it might be other kinds of professionals, right? Again, I was mentioning financial advisors, accountants, lawyers, those folks too, sometimes it's helpful for them to understand what this person is en route to creating in their life and the steps that they want to be taking. So it allows people to very quickly get on the same page and assist whatever this person is wanting to create in their life. And just overall, so many of us have been in boring kinds of meetings and hopefully not too boring kinds of therapy sessions or coaching sessions, but overall, it just tends to be an interesting, different methodology for people, so that brings more energy and participation to things. Now, many of you here are interested in weaving this into your own practices. There's a lot of benefits for us as practitioners. First off, this is still a niche. Working visually overall is still a niche, let alone this particular niche within the niche, right? Visual coaching is that. So differentiation, it allows you to really stand out and differentiate yourself from maybe other practitioners in your area or your field. It really adds range to your process toolkit. It makes the selling of services, in my experience, having been in this for years and years, very easy. much easier than traditional methods because literally you have different pieces that you can explain your process to people using. And so they get it. Coaching can be quite an amorphous thing. And by having a visual process and visual tools, it makes it tangible, it makes it more known, and it helps the client understand it and make a more informed purchase instead of just kind of jumping in there and we'll see what happens. I'm not really sure what I'm buying. They're very clear. They're able to see what they're buying, and that can really boost your sales ability. It also gives the legitimacy to engage in creativity and the value of it. And it keeps challenging you. It's ongoing development. It's going to depend on where you are as a person in terms of your visual acumen and your skills. But chances are you've always got more to learn. I certainly do, and I've been doing it for 2 decades. There's always a learning edge. There's always a development edge. So it's nice for us as practitioners because it gives us something meaty to chew into and to continue to learn with, and which is fulfilling and it's fun. So here's a couple of pictures just to start to move in and show you some of this work and drill down with it a little bit and show you the variety. 2 main ways, 2 main delivery methods here. On the left-hand side, you'll see me standing at the wall there with my client, Alan, and I've got the map drawn out with him. If you're on my YouTube site, there's a video called Focus on Me, and this is a screenshot from that video, so you can see me interacting with him and how we co-create this chart together over time. And then on the other side here, this is again what I'm increasingly doing. This is where I'm sitting right now, is at my desk, and I literally do have the dog on my lap. JJ's his name. And using web conferencing technology and hooking it up to different kinds of digital displays and drawing devices. So I get asked all the time, so I'll say it right now. I'll tell you what the hardware is I'm using and the software. So the hardware I use is Wacom Cintiq. So that big old tablet you see me writing on in that picture, that's a Cintiq tablet made by Wacom. I have the 22-inch size, and it's mounted onto my desk, so I can push it out of the way. It doesn't take up a lot of room on my desk. And software-wise, I use Sketchbook Pro. That's the software program that I'm using. There's other various things. Our technology world is continuing to change every moment, so I'm sure there'll be new software programs and new gadgets to emerge, but those have really served me well, so I haven't been enticed yet to switch to anything else. I really like the Sketchbook Pro program. It works very nicely, and I in particular am importing a lot of my own templates, and I'm drawing and I'm writing on top of those templates, so it works very nicely for me. And then, of course, I've got it hooked up to some sort of web conferencing. Right now, today, with all of you, I'm using WebEx. Zoom is another common program out there. So, you know, when I imagined this, when I started to work in person with my clients, of course, technology was not quite there yet, where I could do what I'm doing with you today. So it's been fantastic to see this stuff emerge over time. And it's affordable. Most people can figure it out quite easily. So it's really a fantastic time that we're living in, that this technology is available to us. And it's really busting open this visual coaching niche, because you can now work with people. You're not just limited to working with people who are in your geographical area or who will travel to you, right, and working off of that paper. Now we can do this all via the electronic means. If you read my e-zine yesterday, there is a little bit of challenge with that. You got to watch some of the biohacking problems. The being in front of the computer all the day and sitting all the day is not the healthiest thing in the world for you, but there's ways that you can build your lifestyle to make sure you biohack that so you're keeping yourself healthy. Okay, I'm just going to take a little break here and see. I'm going to check chat to see if we have any questions just on this overall contextual stuff that I've discussed so far before I drill down here a little more. I don't see anything in the chat. If anybody does have a question that they want to ask now, just unmute yourself next to your name on the participant list. You'll see a little mute button, a little microphone. It's all muted right now, but you're welcome to unmute yourself if anybody does have a question or a comment that they want to ask with what I've covered so far. Nope. Hopefully that all makes sense. Okay, let's just show you a little bit of this here. So two ways that this can be done too. Most of the time we're drawing this out for our clients. I'm going to show you some slides down the way where clients are drawing it out for themselves. So the in-person method, you can see large sheets of paper up on the wall here, mural paper. You can start from scratch and have it emergent, and or you can start with some sort of form that you draw on it. In my visual coaching program, I mostly work with small scale forms and templates because we're working with people electronically and by distance. My grads, they have permission once they're through the program. They can draw up those forms and repurpose them large. I don't offer large size printed forms as part of my business. I just allow people to draw those forms out for themselves large once they get there. And this one you see on the map, courtesy Jennifer Wood, who's one of my graduates, she's got a life map here. And so she's cozied up here with the client, looks like it's in some sort of boardroom, and papered the wall and has done a timeline here with her client. You can see up at the top here, she's got little bubbles, and they're all written in red. It's too far away, we can't see the content, but how I train with the life mapping process, I think is really important once you've got the timeline all mapped out there, that you extract out what are the beliefs of the client from those different eras of their life. So that's what she's doing in this video, or this picture here. She's just completed a life map with her client, and she's distilled out the beliefs from that life map, which may or may not still be informing the client's current day life. Just yesterday, I had this lovely lady, Susan, here. She flew in from North Carolina to work with me for 2 days, and we did a private in-person Shift It retreat. So I put her through my Shift It process, and you can see on the walls behind her, we're working in a small little office here, and we've got some good walls on both sides of us, and about 16 feet of mural on both sides of the walls. So we're doing kind of fun. Some of it is my template work, and she's in the Visual Coach program. She's aware of the process already, so we have that shared dialogue between us, which is nice. And then just emergent work as well, things that just pop out of the conversation and the energy of what's happening. I can just grab markers, and so can she, and we go to the wall, and we really work with whatever's emerging from that coaching session. My background is visioning and strategic planning, as I was explaining, so I do a lot of that left brain work. I'm also an energy worker, and I've had my Kundalini open. Those of you who are aware of what Kundalini energy is, I had a Kundalini awakening 3 years ago, which has incredibly changed my life and changed my perception and my ability to connect in with energy. So I'm often doing that kind of work with people too. It's not just about their vision and their plans, but it's their energy alignment with what it is that they say they want. And if there are blocks and different kinds of resistances and conflicts going on within them, we can bring that up into the light of day, literally draw it out, and erase and resolve some of that for them. So I'm doing that kind of work here with Susan. I like to get my clients up at the wall participating too, so you can see her. She's coloring her charts, and you know, I've got her equipped with markers. This is those of you who have been in the fundamentals class in person. I do cover visual coaching. I cover 4 things in that fundamentals class. The final day, we're focusing on the more intimate work, so the visual coaching work. And so this is a demo with a woman in the class. I'm using one of my particular moves from Shift It. And she's sitting there in the chair, and I'm working with her and talking with her, and she's replying to different things, and I'm writing and drawing those up right in front of her as the rest of the class is watching. Sonia up here, again, I got her working away, coloring her maps. We're doing some visioning and action planning work with her. She flew in from the UK to work with me. Here we have adorable JJ. So I don't often work with younger people. I was going to say kids. He's not a kid. He was 18 years old in this picture. But sometimes parents will do this as a grad gift for their graduate, whether it's right out of high school or maybe they've graduated from university and they're in that oh-so-fun period of what am I going to do now that I'm through school. And so I'm working in this picture with this young man, and we've done visioning work at the we've done his life map and his current situation and some visioning and some energy alignment and action planning work, and just a delight. Very, very fun. And here's some other shots so you can see things. On the left-hand side on the floor here, you can draw and bring in the visuals, and it's not just about drawing too, it's about shapes and color. There's a lot of things that are visual that aren't just drawing. You can have your clients do that, and you can also bring in different kinds of tools. And that's a tool that you see there. It's called Visual Explorer. Some of you might already be familiar with it. And it's a deck of 300 images, which is very handy. There's starting to emerge different kinds of visual decks and things that you can use for groups or for individuals, different kinds of sizes. Center for Creative Leadership produces that in the Carolinas in the US. We'll see these gals here. I've got a couple of my shifted templates. So they're on the table, they're working with the smaller size templates. They're in a coaching group. And then behind them is the larger size. So I will operate with different kinds of sizes. It gets a little boring if you always stick with the same size in a coaching group. So it's nice to go from something that's large with everybody to breaking into dyads and pairs, and then maybe doing some individual size work. And you can have different kinds of displays. So one display is the large size wall display. Maybe you have a flip chart size or a tablet size, and then you have the little itty bitty individual ones just to add variety and different kinds of intimacy levels. So I'm going to show you some of the visual coaching that's spontaneous, that just emerges from white paper. That's always going to look a little more sketchy and rough than things that are done from templates. This slide deck that I'm sharing afterwards will follow up with you. I'm sharing these things quite quickly. Depending on your systems, some of you may or may not see things particularly large on your end. So if you are interested to slow down and study these things in more depth, just know you'll have access to the PDF where you can look at this as, you know, up close and as long as you care to. I'm just going to quickly go through things just to give you an idea of generally what this stuff can look like. Keep in mind, this has been created in person with large sheets of paper. We've taken photos of them and cleaned them up, or they've been scanned. That's how we get them nice looking and into these smaller documents afterwards. But in person, this person's sitting there just like the pictures you saw before. They've got these large white sheets of paper, and in the case of the one you're seeing in front of you, this is a life mapping process. So I'm working with this particular man, working with him in San Francisco, and we're looking back. He's actually from the Midwest and is at a real choice point in his career, having worked for Motorola and been in communications and marketing and quite lead positions, kind of what's next for him. So he's really waving goodbye to the Midwest here as he's contemplating different eras of his life, and we're pulling out the different realizations here. And then he's saying goodbye to the future, or saying hello to the future. So bye to the past and hello to the future. Something went a little funky with the file there. Here's another life map process. I'm actually working large with a sheet of paper. This is before web conferencing kicked in. And so I'm hooked up to the phone, talking with my client. I'll take photos at a break, send them to her. That's how we get the interactive built in. I have the permission of the wonderful Ann Leach, who does grief counseling. Some of you may know her work from Life Preservers. And we're looking specifically at the career, not so much the whole life focus. So we've started it, when did she start her official schooling and when were her first official jobs, and we're extracting out her life map as we go along as a first move before we get into other coaching work where we're looking at, you know, what's next for her and starting to build that. So big and sketchy, and just when I'm working, you have to be a very good listener. Those of you who work with individuals, I'm sure you are. And you're distilling out, I call it the knowledge nugget. You're distilling out what's that gold, get things into a nugget. You can't record everything, so you're really listening for those important nuggets and getting those nuggets up. And it's really a remarkable process to be sitting there and having your life drawn out in front of you. That certainly doesn't happen every day. It's a very sacred, amazing process. So people usually really enjoy that and get a lot out of it. And you know, as a counselor or a coach, you're often trying to point out things to people. And it's much easier when you're doing it visually because you're drawing it out. Those words are literally staring that client in the face. They've said them, so they're a reflection of their words. And people really get things, much more than if they're just thinking and things are swirling around their head. They really get what they are saying to themselves, and they hear it in a way that often they haven't heard before, because again, it's literally glaring at them and purple, red, and whatever, right, to get their attention. And they can't ignore things anymore if that's what was going on, or kind of procrastinating, right? It's really there front and center for them to pay attention to. So very powerful medium. This is just some visioning work. So I do various kinds of things with clients to help them tap into what it is that they desire. So with this particular woman, we're just really getting into what is she about, what are her talents, what are her passions, you know, what brings her joy, as opposed to what doesn't. Often clients come in very dissatisfied to coaching, right? And so their satisfaction is interrupted. So I'm getting them focused on what does make you feel good, what does light you up, and starting to define that and helping them figure out how to bring more of that into their lives. I know I'm flashing these quick, but just kind of take the panorama and take it in. This is just, we've done visioning with her. She's actually doing, this is couples work too. So I'll work with individuals, but I'll also work with their couple. So bring in their partner, and maybe it's a shared vision, right? And a shared action plan, not just one person, one solo vision. So getting the whole household really involved and on the same path and working together and getting clear about what their commitments are and what are they going to do by when and how are they going to transition to this new world that they want to create for themselves. Lots of babies. I think I'm up to about 15 now, shifted babies. That's so fun. I don't have kids myself, so I'm like, feel like I'm a little bit in the act of creating babies in the world here by helping couples get clear about when they want to expand their families and how they want to go about doing that, and the kinds of homes that they want to create. This is a review, so this is actually one of my own. At the end of the year, sometimes I'll do these as Christmas cards where, you know, people will send out the Christmas letter about what they've been up to. I'll do a visual summary of that. Here's my year in review. So I might do that personally, or I might have put a professional slant on it and do a blog post or something around it. So that's an example. This is a very early on vision. It was fun going through my slide decks because I've done various things over the years and used different kinds of technology. And sometimes I'll look at some of the old stuff and it's like, why don't I do that anymore? That was good. I should go back to that. And a lot of this work, this early work of mine, as I honed my process, my shifted process with people, and I started to get really clear about what order I'd like to work with people, what moves do I do first, and then second, and then third. And as my process became very clear, instead of drawing these things out every single time, I moved to creating templates, visual maps that I could use. It made my practice so much easier, right, to have it already pre-drawn, the basic holding form, and then I can work with each client to pull out the customized information from them. So that was a breakthrough in my career. And then eventually, other coaches and other process professionals saw what I was doing in my practice. Maybe they were a client of mine and they're like, I want to use those forms too. Like, can I? And for a long time I wouldn't allow people, but then I eventually created the Visual Coach certification program that I can properly train people in the process and in the various tools, and they can use them with their own clients and make their own practice much more efficient, just like I did my own. So these ones I'm flashing now are just some of the early moves. This is a visioning tool. This one is a life wheel. Those of you who have been through CTI and other coach training programs, we learn a lot about life wheels and satisfaction wheels. This is just a visual way of doing that. And good old sticky noting, action planning, right? Rough and ready, helping a client figure out what are their next action areas and breaking them down into itty-bitty steps by when, and bringing an order, right, where the rubber really hits the road and people, this is how you manifest what you want. You make it happen. You go do things or be things or buy things or barter things to make it happen. This shot here, I had mentioned earlier that I do a lot of energetic work with people. There's a process that I use called orphan rescue. Beautiful work, deep work, and I know you can't see it too in depth because it's a further away shot. This was actually done yesterday with a client who was in town, and we did a mass orphan rescue. So we worked from different traumatic incidences from 30 to, or 3 all the way up to 60. We pulled out various things to soothe and soften that energy and really get her into the place that she wants to be now in terms of being in her core power and her sovereignty and her commanding her space. I also just, you know, there's such a range. You can take a lot of time in your studio creating stuff ahead of time. You can prepare, like I was talking about, different kinds of templates and tools to help you do your work. I just want you to know, too, it can just be rough and ready, right? Just like a black pen. You learn these different skills. Maybe it's just taking your own notes. If you're a therapist or a coach, you're taking your own notes, and or you're creating more attractive notes that you can share with your clients as well. So a lot of my stuff, because I'm a process worker, I don't have time to make things perfect because I'm leading process and explaining process and holding emotion and holding space and getting us ready for the next move. There's a whole lot happening, right? So a lot of my work is really roll up your sleeves, rough and ready, and good enough is good enough. Very different from people who are doing studio work or doing graphic recording where they don't have to be responsible for the process at the same time. So I just want to make it clear, like, it's okay for it to look rough. And if you're doing, I often encounter people who stumble upon this work and they're already naturally doing it to some extent themselves. So I'm often affirming to them, like, you have good instincts. That's what my stuff looks like too, you know, often, or that's what my early stuff looked like when I was first experimenting with this stuff. So, you know, you're on the right track. So if you're seeing yourself in these rough notes, just know this is visual process work too. This is just a rough little process called a focus wheel. I actually built this into a template, you know, an official pretty looking visual tool, but this is how it first started with rough kind of notes. And then I found it was such a helpful process that I officially created a template around it that's much more professional and sophisticated. But this is where stuff often starts, rough and ready, emergent out of your client work. And here's just an example of that kind of basic kind of sketching, very wordy, that's okay. Again, I do consciousness work, so we're pulling out different states of consciousness for her here. I had mentioned tools. There are different kinds of visual decks. Collage is also, right? You don't just have to draw, your clients draw. You can bring in different kinds of visual aids. So again, here's the Visual Explorer. This is one of my mastermind retreats. So I've got these people all from the world coming together. We work online a lot, but we also come in person and have 2-day retreats. And so you see in the wall behind these gals is retreat check-in. So we've used the visual image decks, right? People go along, who are you today? Who are you this morning? How are you? What's going on for you? And they'll pull from these image decks to explain to their table or to the group at large, here's who I am today. It's funny because there's some of you may have these decks, and there's all sorts of images, happy images, sad images, gross images. There's an image in there of roadkill. So whenever the roadkill, like I'm kind of watching as people are doing stuff, whether I'm working with a group or I'm working with individuals, and when I see the roadkill, I'm like, uh-oh. This is going to be interesting, right? The roadkill one's out. So, and just because I think that's what that thing represents, sometimes I'm surprised because to me it represents roadkill and, you know, some sort of gnarly situation that ended badly. Sometimes different people apply different meanings to visuals and to imagery. So it's very interesting to hear who chose it that time and what does that roadkill image mean to them. It's not always what I think it's going to mean or what I've heard in other groups. So the subconscious mind of each of us is really interesting in how it connects with imagery and the meaning that it applies to things. So I love that. I love the variety and how unique people are. Here's another slide here. I said I mentioned before that I like working with entrepreneurial couples. I'm not a couples counselor, so I don't work with folks who are in bad shape in terms of their connection and their energy and their relationship. I work with people who are pretty steady and they're focused more on their shared business or their shared future as opposed to so much improving problems per se. So I'm using it in that context. So this is an entrepreneurial couple who a couple of years ago was focusing on their future and their vision. And you can see I've got a hybrid here. I've used some of those images they've used because I've laid out the deck and we're doing future work. So I'll say go to that deck and pull out 3 images that represent where you want your shared business to go. Right? So we have him and her here. She's got her 3, he's got his 3. They dialogue about what these things mean. I've got my fingers crossed behind my back that they're going to be somewhat on the same page. And if they're not, that's okay. I facilitate that out. If they are, that's okay. We facilitate that out. And we just play with this. But the image decks are just so great because they cut through, right, the left brain, and they really get to that right brain subconscious mind. And the adage of a picture is worth 1,000 words is really true as they share this imagery with each other and explain what it means underneath it all. It gets us there much quicker in terms of defining what they're wanting to build together. Having some folks join us. Welcome, Tom. Okay, good. Collage is awesome. Again, yes, we can create this work as the practitioner for our clients, but as much as possible, I like to get my clients co-creating their own stuff or fully creating their own stuff. And collage is an easy way. Some people are jonesing to get the markers and draw and write things out. Other people are more reluctant to do that, right? They don't feel that they can draw or they're intimidated by that or slowed down by that. One way to get through that is to go to collage. You can go to those image decks or you can get stacks of magazines. My friends know I do this stuff, colleagues locally. So my old place, they used to be able to walk right up to my door and I'd walk out in the morning and there'd be boxes of magazines left for me because I like to get a variety of magazines, right? Not just one thing, lots of different activities, lots of different professions and backgrounds and races and cultures. So you've got a whole variety of things that your clients can pull from if you're working with them in person. Of course, now if you're working with them by distance, they can go to the web, they can clip images from the web and do these things digitally just as maybe even more easily than they can with magazines and physical collages. I just had a beautiful story. Are you on, Felicia? I don't want to put you on the spot, but yeah, I think you might be live with us. If if you do want to share. It was a really cool story with her husband with collage. Okay, so different kinds of images. Using collage, here's another collage, right? Vision boarding, future boarding, treasure boards. These things are called different things. It's a classic move, right, to do these. I use them a lot. Here's another one here. Can be different things. Relationship, this one's love. So people can be focused on career and abundance or geography or whatever it is. Because I used collage so much, I've created a template. My template is called Essential Extracts. So the collage goes in the middle, and then we're extracting out what's that meaning for that client underneath those images, and highlighting and checking the ones where it comes up repeatedly. This is a preliminary move for me prior to really galvanizing the vision into a magnetism map tool that I use. So this is a preliminary exercise to get the juices going for people. Some people really love collage work, other people don't. So I have lots of different ways I can ease into visioning depending on what they resonate with and what they like. Here's another example. In the middle here is the magnetism map. So what I eventually get people down to for their visions. And this client's done a hybrid. So he did his magnetism map, and then he also just collected different kinds of imagery that matched what that vision was about for him, and created his own, cool collage that works for him and is inspiring for what he wants to create in his life. Okay, I'll just take another little check here of chat if anybody has any questions, comments in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself. Okay, I got a question here. Do you print out your wall display templates, or is it handwork? For wall display, no, I don't. I mentioned the Grove Consultants. I worked with them for years. That's the Grove's business model. They're working with organizations. So if you're familiar with the Grove, grove.com, they've got all sorts of printed templates. Because my process is coaching, and a lot of it is done online nowadays, I've opted not to go the printing route. My business model is not to get into printing. I don't want to have to print and ship and fuss with all that stuff. I've rolled it all into one price for the certification, and that's a lifetime license to use my electronic tools. So they're in PDF form. And some clients do rough size, so they're allowed, having graduated from the program, they're allowed to draw that out by hand, large. I don't know, I might in the future create printed out ones, but it seems to be that it's just really taken by storm with the smaller size, and the way we do it seems to be the way most people want to do that. Yeah, you're welcome, Marielle.
This is Bruce.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey. It would be helpful to me as you go along. I realize this isn't about instruction so much as giving us an overview. If you could help us understand how some of the drawings are structured. I keep thinking of words like anchor or spine. I mean, when you start throwing things on a page, you've got to allow for other things to grow around it. And I'm wondering if you could explain any of that as you go along.
Yeah, I'm certainly welcome to stick around. I know you're interested in the fundamentals class, and that's what we're going to do in fundamentals. We talk about the formats. And you can go to my YouTube channel and watch common formats, and that might help you a little bit with this structuring stuff you're thinking about. Today, when I share the templates, you're going to see, you'll see some that aren't filled in yet, so that'll start to understand what the pre-form is, right? And then you'll see the after effect working with clients. So let's see how it goes the rest of the presentation, and then I'll stick around afterwards and help tease that out more for you if you have other questions at the end of it. Okay. Anybody else? Question, comment? Just unmute yourself. Okay. Okay, templates as process aids. Like I was saying, for a long time, I drew everything out by hand every single time. And that's okay if you're doing different stuff all the time, but if you tend to have a process that is a favorite and seems really effective with your client base, it can be handy to templatize that out. So it makes your job easier. The next time that comes up in your practice, you can grab the template and work with the person with the template as opposed to having to draw it all out each time. So that eventually shifted in my process. And like we've been talking about, you can have large wall size ones, or you can have smaller size. And because I'm often just working with one person, I tend to go with the smaller size. So behind me here, there's a dramatic picture standing in front of the wall of templates. But you'll see there's, those are tablet size. So they're 11 inches by 17 inches. Sorry if that's not your metric. Hope you can convert that. Those are double the standard size of paper here in North America, right? Like our photocopy sheets. That's a nice size to work with an individual. And I have map packs that are that size for my clients. And you'll see some other pictures here where we're working at that size. I'll shift it quickly. You can, if you're curious about that, there's a lot more stuff on my site where you can read about it in more depth and learn about it in more depth. But working repeatedly with people over time and just through a very cool, creative, and even spiritual process, eventually this process emerged for me in terms of...
I see that I'm...
Hold on, let's get Tom muted here. Okay. Eventually, an acronym came for me that fit what it was that I was doing, and I started to build these tools around it. The acronym for me is SHIFT IT. That's the overall process here, but also each step of the process, you know, has the letter that makes up that acronym, and there's various tools that fall in with this. Lots of ways to coach. This is the way that it's fallen out for me over those years, and this is my signature process that's emerged. I spoke about satisfaction interrupted, that clients often show up, you know, for coaching or counseling, therapy. Obviously, when things aren't going so great often. They may be going great, maybe they just want the next level of things. That sometimes happens, but it's not unusual for people to have their satisfaction interrupted, and that's why they're seeking out some help and they're looking for coaching, and maybe they've stumbled upon or they're actually seeking out visual coaching, which is happening more and more. First thing I do, like I showed already quite a few of these maps, I'll harvest out the history. So it helps me get a quick litmus test of who that person is and what's happened prior to them showing up on my doorstep, and gives me a quick figuring out of them. And also, like I said earlier, it's you know, a really cool process to be able to.
Yeah, I don't.
To be able to see that, to see your life all drawn out in front of you and understand things in a deeper way. When you do a history map, you know, this is all typical strategic planning stuff for those of you who are planners. You'll naturally run out of the history and you'll bump up against where that client is now. I have several tools in the deck that help that person figure out what's up for them, what crossroads they're standing at. Then they're going into their future, so we're doing visioning work. That's where that collage work and magnetism map and other things fall in. This is where my process differs a lot from other processes. Again, I had mentioned the energy work and energetics and stuff, so I'm very sensitive and acute to alignment. And people will say what they want, and we, of course, have to bridge from where they are to where they want to go. Sometimes that's smooth. Sometimes that's a really bumpy process. And that bumpy process can be all sorts of things that are going on inside of them that need to get resolved in order for them to allow and have that whatever it is that they're desiring, and also getting off their butts and getting into action as well. So trouble at the border is a big one in my process and in my work overall, and that takes me into that orphan rescue work I was talking about earlier. And then at the end, Inca don't just think it, the whole process is that, because it's visual, and they're inking it all the way along, not just thinking about things, and then take action. So that gives you the upper context of some of the stuff I'll show you now, because these 7 stages have 17 visual maps within these stages. So just knowing it's part of a bigger flow may help as I'm flashing these and stuff on the screen for you. So satisfaction interrupted. Here's a template. Bruce, this is a 2Z. So one of the ways I think about for my process work, if you're going to sketch a template, you want to create some sort of visual tool to help you do whatever your process is, you really got to look at your process and what are you doing in there. And look for questions, look for focus areas. In this particular map, I'm doing 2 things. Down below in the brown is the crossroads issues. So my client shows up on my doorstep, they want to do shift it. What are the crossroads issues that are coming up for them at X marks that spot in time? And then what are the desired outcomes? What do they want to get through this process? This is just a simple opening move. It's a 2Z, so structurally it's got, I've got 2 placeholders on this map, and I've got a very simple anchoring image, if you will, in the middle of, it's normally one person, but because I'm working with a group here, I can make it into a group and draw a whole collection of people there. That's a super simple template, just a central image and 2 placeholders, top and bottom. And then, of course, when I'm recording on it, I'm being choiceful about choosing colors. So I write all just in one color in one section to help orient the eye to, this stuff is all the same. And then in the next section, I'm choosing another one of my writing color options. I'm writing it in that color, again, to differentiate and distinguish, oh, this is something different. Helps the eye. This is one of my coaches in the program, Hannah Sanford, fabulous artist on the East Coast in the US. Underneath here is the life map template from Shift It. And it's kind of a 2Z or a 3Z in terms of structure. So we've got a timeline moving down the middle. There's 5 templates in it. So a person can literally start at childhood and move, or birth, childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, adulthood. Depending on how old you are, you can print out a couple of adults slides, right, and just fill out your content as you go, or your coach do that for you. So timeline in the middle. Up above here at the top, these bubbles, my process, I'm really big on extracting out what's the belief set. So we've got placeholders in these bubbles to put those beliefs when they fall out or when we facilitate them out. And this is kind of neat because you can keep it the smaller size template, but print it out on bigger paper. So you got this nice white border all around it, which allows you to spill out and explode more content out of the template instead of always keeping it in a, a usual size paper. Here's another one, same thing. This is the early childhood into adolescence. I'm starting to move in with my templates into other languages. The first one we have beyond English is German. So this is from Melanie Zucker, one of our coaches who's in Germany. And you can see her recording on this using the blue and the green and having her black line. I really recommend drawing in black, and my coaches follow that. At least if they want to graduate, what they do afterwards is up to them. So she's got different kind of black line drawings to accompany the content this client is sharing. And then has chosen another color up here to record the content in those belief bubbles at the top. Here's another student, Aaron Johans, over in Vancouver. Aaron's big on working on the tablet, and so he's imported the template. This is the visioning template called the magnetism map. It's the centerpiece of my process, the heart of the process, really getting people into their visions. and he's recorded his content there from his client onto there. I am, I have, by 2015. Another collage piece, so you've seen one of these already, the essential extracts. And with the collages, the client's going to create that collage. So they or the coach has a picture of a scan of it and are reducing it down and putting it into the middle of the template. And then together they're facilitating out, again, what's the meaning under those images and getting that down. All this kind of gathering of information and getting clearer and clearer on that vision. And here's just, again, seeing them in action. So you can create the stuff, you can use collages and vision decks, and then you also, this is a favorite of mine, where you get the clients into the creative act too. So that's a nice thing when you have these templates that you can give them. I've built instruction booklets around mine, and that's a big bulk of what the Visual Coach program is you've got your template and you've got your ebook connected to that template that trains you, the coach, how to do it, but it also gives you something that you can assign as homework to your clients. So maybe you've gotten a certain amount of work done in the live session with them and it's midway done, or there's a next piece that's important to be done before the next time you meet. It's handy to have these materials that you can assign as homework, and then the client goes and does that work on their own. Those of you who have been in my Shifted Online class, in that program, just like these people, they're in an in-person version of the Shifted program. They're coming together in an in-person group. I run online groups where people are working their way through these templates. I'm not doing it one-to-one with them or one of my coaches. They're doing it themselves in the company of this group. And so you can see these ones at the table, right, thinking there, working with their stickies, really doing their own drawing. I will tell you this, because I'm honestly someone who is a process professional, is a person who spends a lot of my time literally drawing this stuff out of people. I think it's even more powerful when you get it in the hands of people and they do their own. And I know I have a training in trauma and traumatic stress, right? And some of the portion of the people that I work with very high-functioning people, but they might have different traumatic things that have happened in the past or recently. And trauma lodges in different places of the brain, and it's not a talking, speaking thing. So when they're quiet and they're drawing and they're writing this stuff out, they're activating a different part of their brain and they're processing this stuff much differently than they do if they're speaking it in traditional speak or coaching therapy. So it's super powerful. It took me a while because I'm so focused on being the practitioner and teaching other people how to do this stuff, which is fantastic. But for people who have been particularly hurt or traumatized and just kind of introvert types, it's just really a nice option to have things that they can do themselves and they can go to a nice deep place with it. And having a coaching group too, where if they care to share the content of what they're finding and understanding about themselves, can be really supportive and breakthrough for people. In my groups, I talk a lot about put stuff on the coffee table, and that literally comes from my living room and my coffee table. So Sonia's here from the UK, and you can see these tablets, or sorry, the templates all spread out there. We also have the wall, so we're able to work big as well, and we go back and forth between working big at the wall and working small with the templates, and her creating stuff and me creating stuff, and making it nice and cozy and fun there. And these are just some other examples of clients getting in and creating stuff, right? Some people, because of the creative nature of what I do, I get a lot of artists and designers and different kinds of people here creating material. And then I get people who aren't artists at all and who are maybe a bit put out by that. And like I was saying, when they create their own stuff, it's not really about the art underneath. It isn't for me for all of this stuff, as pleasing and as attractive as it is. It's really about reflection and thinking and even deeper feelings and emotion underneath. And, that helps us get there. These frames and these templates help us get there. So that's some stuff from them. And it's portable. So I'll take clients, if it's nice weather, we'll go down to the beach and we'll do this stuff on the beach. And, you know, the home retreat kits, they can take it onto the beach themselves and just really do some deep reflection work in a comfortable environment for them. Okay. I realized time-wise, we started a little late with those getting us all set up here on the webinar, so I'm probably going to go 10 more minutes or so here. I'm going to give you a couple of moving forward for those of you who might be interested in some of the offerings that I have. First off, just know that there's tons of free stuff on my site. I've been in this work for 2 decades now, and yeah, of course, I'm in business, and part of what I'm doing here is a soft sell in terms of some of my offers. But if that's not your thing right now, that's cool. Go to the site and poke around, and there's a lot of information that's on the site. Articles, I have e-zine archives, I got a blog. You can check out Flickr. My handle there is Christina Merk, or Graphic Coach on Flickr. You'll see different kinds of portfolios and image sets and things that'll help you if you're an individual trying to figure out some of this stuff for your own shift it process and your own development, or if you're a professional who's getting curious about work in visual, it'll give you different kinds of ideas. Not so much on Twitter anymore. I'm mostly on, I've got 2 Facebooks. One is the business, but I'm most active on my personal one, Christina Merkley, on Facebook. I use Facebook quite a bit. And the YouTube channel, there's several videos up there. Some of them are quite old. I was one of the first people in the field to have a video. Now there's tons of people in the field using videos. So they're a little bit old, some of them, but I'm continuing to add to that as we go along. So check out that, and there's the 3 different sites, Shift It Coach, Visual Coaches, and Make Mark. And then if you're a person who thinks this visual coaching stuff is interesting and you need to make a shift in your life, here are some options that are available. We have 60 certified visual coaches now from around the world, so depending on your geography, you may want to take a look at the visualcoaches.com site, and you can see the directory. I am available. I do some private coaching still, so I'm on the top of the list there. You can click through to my coaching pages, but you'll also see the 60 other coaches and their contact information, different kinds of specialties, different kinds of geographies, so highly skilled, trained people, fantastic people that we have there. If you're interested with coaching with me, you can do that privately. Most of my work is over the web. I do work with people in person. I was showing you the photos from working with Susan the last 2 days, so some people do fly in and work with me half day up to 2 days. There's different kinds of packages. And then if the online group, so you can do Shift It online in the company of others, but you're actually creating your own template, you know, filling in those templates and working through that process and coming to your own reflections and the ahas as opposed to me or the coach, other coaches drawing that out of you. And if you don't want to do a group, if you're more of a solo person or the timing of the groups don't work out for you, check out the Shift It Home Retreat Kit. And you can download that right off of the site. And that's a retreat in a package that you can work through at your own pace and really apply the Shift It process and those particular tools to your own life and what it is that you're wanting to shift in life and bring about. And if you're interested, you're a process professional of some sort, you're a consultant or a therapist or a coach or whatever it might be, I do have various kinds of trainings available. So these shots here are from the fundamentals of working visually, so teaching you all the little drawing tricks and icons. There's the beginning program is the fundamentals of working visually. And you can, I do still offer it in person, not as much as I used to. It's just once a year. I do it here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. So we get people who fly in from all over to do that, and a lot of local people. And then twice a year, it's offered online, over 9 weeks online, and there's also a home study program for that. So lots of options to learn those base visual skills and get those into your repertoire if you want to. Just go onto the site on the courses page and you'll see those offerings. If you're a little more advanced, I do what's called a magic marker retreat, a 2-day retreat. It follows the in-person fundamentals course. Some people do it back-to-back. They'll do the basic and then they do the advanced and put it all into one trip. And we're just down, I think we've got 2 spots still left in this year's magic marker. So keep that in mind. If you already have the basics from me or someone else and you want to come together with other visual practitioners and take it up to the next level, you can check out the magic marker retreat. And then there's another kit in there called the Biz Essentials for Process Professionals. So a lot of my coaching is helping other process professionals build their practices and often moving them online and maybe creating their own products and various things. The Biz Essentials for Process Professionals, that's just a home study kit, 10 modules, and that'll help you if you need some assistance on the business development, marketing side of things. And then for visual coaching, there's the Visual Coach certification. That's done once a year. It's right around the corner for this year for 2016. There are 2 prerequisites. So one is being through Shifted, because that's a big bulk of the program. So you really need to understand that from the inside out and know if that's a fit for your practice and that those are going to be useful tools for you. So that's one is Shifted. Either with me or one of the certified coaches having gone through that process. Well, so your visual skills and Shifted are those 2 prerequisites. If you've done your visual skills with someone else, that's great. So just show me, send me some of the examples of your work. I may be able to give you equivalency. So you've already got the prerequisite, just not through me, but through someone else. Just some other shots of what this stuff looks like. That's the training in person, and they're building their own templates there on the tables. And learning the icons, having fun there. This stuff is very kinesthetic. It's funny because for our clients it's visual because they're reading and seeing everything. For us, it's kinesthetic. We're building it. And especially when you're working large, you really got to move your body, right, and know how to move your body in a certain way that's going to make different marks on the walls, the ones you want, right? Like how to draw a straight line, how to draw a decent circle, how to get the kinks out of your lettering. If your lettering's a little off, you're not friends with your lettering. Yeah, so that's all that stuff that's taught there. Visual Coach certification, I now am doing 2 different brands, if you will, because more and more process professionals who aren't coaches or therapists are getting interested in working visually. I have a co-brand now, so usually it's certified visual coach. Some people don't want to use the word coach. Some people don't want to use the word visual. So I've made it also an option that you can go with the logo after you're done this, certified in Shifted maps. And that opens it up for some people like financial advisors and mediators and different kinds of people who don't want to use the word coach, and that doesn't really represent who they are. So keep that in mind. If you're a different kind of practitioner, we can talk about that if the visual coach lingo isn't particular for you. These are the Shifted maps. I'll flash these real quick since we're just at time, but if people have more specific questions afterwards, I'm happy to answer them. And again, you can go onto the site, onto the certification page, and there's a link through to a process page that explains this. There's 2 client examples for each map, and you can really get a sense of what these are about and their structure, Bruce. 17 maps in all for the main process. This is helpful to have. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time and investment to learn this stuff over the years and figure out what works best for me and my practice. And there are a lot of common best practices in there that suit a lot of other professionals, not just me. So you can use these tools to fully put your client through a Shifted process if that works for you. Or you can cherry pick them out because there's going to be ones in there that maybe you already do. You're not just doing them visually yet. And you can cherry pick out those ones that separately work for you as opposed to having to put someone fully through the process. So you can weave this in nicely with whatever it is you're already doing with your clients, and it gives you some quick options to be able to do it in a visual way. And this year, I've enhanced the program. This is going into the 7th year, and as I go along, I'm continuing to develop new tools. So I've added those new tools over the last couple of years. I've put them in too. So now it's 30 maps overall. There's 13 new maps. There's a little mini Shift It retreat that instead of, it's nice if a person's been through Shift It, then you can, if you want to more quickly, maybe it's been a couple of years and they're ready for their next round, you can do a little mini Shift It instead of having to do all those 17 maps. You can get in there much quicker, get a sense of what's up now, and then move into implementation coaching or something with them. So I've put that in, the mini Shift It retreat. Orphan Rescue, where my work is going, more recently, the last couple of years, where I'm getting more into the trauma work and into the soul retrieval energetic work. There's a protocol in there called Orphan Rescue, which is very powerful. So I've put that into Visual Coach certification now. Law of Attraction, I have a background with LOA, and there's 4 LOA maps. And then the magnetism maps, Shift It, and you saw several of them where I'm just working with one person and we're drawing out their vision. I've got levels of it, so they could do a couple's vision. They can do a group vision. They can do a planet vision. We can do a galactic vision if you want to really, and I think we need it. Our planet and our galaxy needs this, right? We need people focusing at this level. And we're doing that in my groups, and it's amazing what's happening. So those are also tools, depending at the level that you're working with clients. It gives you more options for focusing that visioning at different levels. And then I've got also a general coaching map. Sometimes when I work with clients, I'm not pulling out these maps. I'm doing spontaneous emergent coaching. So I've got a basic general template that I can start with. And depending on what happens, we can default to the other tools, cherry pick out them, or we can just use that template. So I've thrown that into the mix as well because I use that so much in my practice. So, these are things that have been really honed from lots of practice with me and now with the coaches that, are very handy to have for your practice. The certification. So you can use my visual methods and the tools, the 30 maps with your own clientele. So you're basically getting an individual license for life to be able to use the tools, and you get set up with the ebooks and the PDF files, etc. Let alone have the ability to redraw out those things large and use my processes that way as well. We also part of your hours that you're going to be doing in that program, if you have your own intellectual property and you want to create your own tools, you don't want to just use my tools, but there's things you're doing that you're wanting to add a visual layer to, we do that in this program as well. So a lot of coaching happens for other people who are developing out their IP, helping you to do that, and you can count your hours as you're developing and using that, your own templates with your clients. That can count towards your hours for the program. You're doing 24 hours of client work for this program. After you've been trained in the training webinars, you go out into a self-paced phase where you're working with clients and rolling up your sleeves and doing this stuff and getting competent at it. And then we've got business development and marketing support, and you're joining that international community of certified visual coaches. So if you're interested in the upcoming 2016, if you got your prerequisites, great, you can come right on in. There's an application process where you and I talk to make sure you're a fit, and you've got the various things that I'm looking for the people I allow into the program. And if you don't have your prerequisites and you want to move quick and get into 2016, you still can. If you need visual skills, you're either going to have to come to Victoria in June, or you're going to have to dive into the home retreat kit and finish that program. And if you need to pick up Shift It, basically your only opportunity now is to work privately with me or one of the certified coaches, or dive in and get the Shift It home retreat kit. and just crank out those maps. They're due by the second week of the Visual Coach program. You need to be done your own maps with Shifted, because then I can teach you on how to hold that space for a client properly, moving into June and July, or sorry, April and May and June. There's payment plans galore. You can choose one pay up to a 24 pay, depending on your cash flow needs. And the combo package is, you save quite a bit, up to $2,000 on the combo package. It's pulling the 3 courses together, the 2 prerequisites and the certification. I've also put in the Business Essentials program, that business building program. I've put that as a bonus for the combo folks as well. If you, because I've changed the program this year, some folks saw the combo as it used to be. They made a decision to buy things piecemeal and do them separately. If you now wish, oh, I should have got the combo because now look at what it is. It's a heftier combo. I'm allowing grandfathering for this cohort. So coming up to this year, you can apply your previous purchases and we'll roll them into the combo so that you'll get those price savings that you would have if you had initially purchased the combo. So check that out. If that's too confusing, just write me and we'll let you know what the financials come down to for your particular situation. So thank you, everybody. That's a quick blitz through visual coaching overall, just a little intro there to what I find is just, it's a blessing for me to work in this field. And it's particularly sacred for me. I like to go deep, so I love working at the coaching level and this energetic level with people. So thanks for being interested and allowing me to share what this is about. Hopefully it's been of use for you. It gives you a sense if you're a practitioner or if you're somebody who's just at a crossroads in life and you're curious about how you go about manifesting what it is you want in life and going to that next stage of things. I'll end the official webinar there, and I'll check the chat real quick to see if anything has come up. I think there's a couple more things in chat. And then I'm certainly welcome, you're welcome to ask any questions or comments. Just unmute yourself and we'll do Q&A here just bonus-wise for as long as there's interest. Just taking a look here at the chat. Okay, yeah, so I got a comment in here from Marielle. I really enjoy seeing how grounded the visual coaching tools and templates make the work that lays beneath it. The spiritual work, the healing work, the self-development, trauma. It inspires me to think in different ways around coaching and facilitation as a way to cover very delicate topics. Yeah, that's what happens when we get into the working with, it happens in groups too. We all know it pops out in different ways in groups, right? But there's more of an opportunity to go to that deeper level. And there is delicate stuff and there's touching and deep stuff there. I'm a deep diver. I like to go there. And, you know, I have different training to hold that space too. So, yeah, it's a great way to cover those delicate topics. Where do you find the combo package? We'll follow up with a link to the certification page, but the combo is on there. If you go to shift-it-coach.com, and there's a courses tab, click the courses tab, it'll show the list of courses. You'll see the certification on there. Certification, all my pages have tons of info because they're pretty robust programs. So just scroll to the bottom of the certification page and you'll see the combo option listed out. You can also do, I should have mentioned this, the combo is not just for 1 year. I've changed that too because some people, it's a lot to get done in a year. Some people are very motivated. I have some people dive in and they get through this stuff in 5-6 months, boom. And other people, you know, take the usual time, which is a year. And I've expanded it. The combo, you can do it over 2 years if you care to. So if you don't want to dive in and get all this stuff done quick, you can still get the combo and just take your time over 2 years and choose. There's lots of different options for when are you going to do your shift it, when are you going to do your visual skills, and which out of the 2 years, the 2016 or 2017 at this time that we're recording, you can choose whichever certification program you're aiming for, right? Which year, so variety of options there. Thanks, Bianca. I'm glad you found it inspiring. Cool. Is it, oh, good question. So Bruce is asking, is the coach's certification accredited? Will it prepare for an ICF exam for their certification? No, I have not gone through ICF accreditation at this point in time. I'm a pretty small practice myself and some visual assistants, so it's a big process for me to go through all that bureaucracy, so I haven't chosen to do it at this point in time. I have had several coaches who are concurrently going through their coach training in various organizations. So my understanding is you're doing hours for me, you can double count your hours. So if you can use those same hours towards whatever you're doing in your own accreditation process with whatever school you're going through. I'm interested in the fundamentals course. Did you say there'll be a live one in June? Yes. Hi, Tom. Yeah. Yeah, it's once a year I do it here in Victoria. So there's one coming up in June. There's still spaces left, and it's June 2, 3, 4. And it's followed by the Magic Marker Retreat on the 6th and 7th. I'm also a graphic designer using Adobe. I see you have a large tablet. Do you do all your custom work on that? My digital custom work, yeah. I'm new to this, so unlike yourself, I'm not a graphic designer. I came at it through process work, right? So organizational development, change management, always been a doodler, never considered myself an artist. But along the way, in order to do my work, and as technology has changed, then I've dived into the tablet work and various kinds of software. So more and more I'm doing that, especially for quick things that I can produce for the webinars and things. I work with designers, so I've got a graphic designer partner that helps me co-develop my templates and other things that I need for the site and things. And you, just maybe some other people here too, like I said at the beginning of the talk, that there's kind of 3 different people who come, and one of those populations are creative types, right? So yeah, it's one of the ways people enter this field, that you have to add some process work understanding to it. So you can start right away with studio work. You're going to have to network and find people who need studio work, but other kinds of process professionals like me, they might be very good in the room. They might be okay, but not great at the illustration design side. So there's a lot of collaboration that happens. So you'll want to find people who are good in the room, facilitators, trainers, stuff like that, and you could partner with them to produce their studio work. So that's one way you can enter into the work with the skills you already immediately have. And then the next natural step would be move into recording. That's going to get you in the room, and you're going to understand process work by being a recorder to other people, other process leads. And then if you care to, you make decisions about whether you want to step into being a process lead. And then you'd have to either learn organically through, being that scribe sidekick, and or take professional kinds of education, workshops and different kinds of learning. Could be a degree or something, depends on what you want to do, and just step up to knowing different processes or things that you can do with those groups. So strategic planning, mediation, whatever it might be. Those things, you got to learn those things. So there's lots of ways too, but yeah. Did that make sense? Just unmute if it didn't and let me know. Yeah. What else do we got in here? Spiritual dimension is very approachable. Things become so much clearer. Yeah. Can you use a tablet if doing live graphic recording? Yes. I mean, I haven't really done anything here with this stuff, so let me bring this down and bring up my tablet. If you probably do understand the term graphic recording and you're using it correctly there, so let me just speak to that. Yeah, some graphic recording is getting done on the tablet, not a huge amount. What I've been hearing is there's kind of a backlash to it, because if a group is doing their thing live, there's JJ. If a group is doing their thing live and they're hooked up to somebody doing digital graphic recording, so you're in another location, but they're using a screen and they're beaming your stuff into their live event, right? So you're not a person there, you're a disembodied person behind a screen and your stuff's popping up. That is happening, but I'm hearing some groups aren't liking it and they're actually saying, turn that off, it's distracting, it's hurting me. You also have to zoom a lot, right? So the zoom effect of going smaller and bigger is apparently making people dizzy. So I wouldn't count on that. Like, I'm sure things are going to change technology-wise and people are going to adapt to things, but I think your best bet is more being live and doing graphic recording that way. I do know some people are live and they're bringing their tablets and all their gear, and their stuff is being projected in the room. That seems to be, they have more of a presence, they're more able to talk to things and be more integrated in. And it also kind of defaults into some things that bump up against our field but aren't really our field, which is like cartoonists showing up at events. They've done that for years, so that's happening with the digital stuff where you're getting cartoonists doing their things and illustrators, and that's not really, in my opinion, graphic recording, but you know, it's getting lumped in. It's visual, it's working visual to some extent, so you do see those things happening. I've had several of those cartoonists come through my programs because they're wanting to learn more that they can do with their skills instead of, you know, being that performing artist in that context. And so they're wanting to move more into the process work instead of just being the guy cartooning out caricatures in the side of the room. Yeah. But in terms of there might be another question embedded in your question about can you use the tablet if doing live. I'll just grab my thing here. I just came off a Shift It webinar earlier today, and we're doing that. We're doing coaching work, right? And so I just did an orphan rescue with a woman earlier today where we went down and she had something going on from 7 to 9 years old, primarily this era of her life, right? So we actually did do some live rescue. It was cute because she had this whole thing come up about camp. So we drew this little scene of her at camp and canoeing and all this sort of stuff. So I'm just doing this real quick just to give you a sense of how that can get used while something's happening. I'm literally drawing out what's happening. There's always a lot of words too, it's not just images. So you can certainly, I haven't demonstrated it and done it here. I've been more pushing information than using this stuff live, but that's the breakthrough that's totally happening with the tablets and with the web conferencing is nothing ever really totally replaces what you can do in person, but it's bringing a nice alternative to things. I think that's it for chat. Let me just check those of you who have stuck around live. I'm just going to unmute you and check. Bianca, any other questions? Bruce, David, Fabrizio, Lori, Michelle, Marielle, just let me unmute you all. If not, I'll just say goodbye. Thanks for coming. But if there's any other questions, just let me know.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Rep.
I wonder if it's actually a better, or women in general are better at it than men, graphic recording and being able to listen and focus.
Well, I don't know about that. I guess it depends on what the group is doing and the nature of what's happening and just different people's aptitudes. Was it Bruce or Tom who asked that? Maybe it was Tom. Yeah, Tom. Good. Let me just unmute you. But yeah, if you find yourself you're not a temperament that tends to focus in well, then that'd be a little challenging. Because it's basically like for graphic recording, that's what you're doing. I mean, you just got and you're not only that, you got to be on and you got to pull out what's the relevant thing, right? And do that all silently off on the side. So it takes a tremendous amount of concentration and the field of what's it called? The translators. When people are translating language, they work. I think it's 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, and they work in teams, right? And that in some ways, we're doing the same thing, that same level of concentrating and being able to translate something, but we haven't got it yet to really getting people and ourselves to understand how intense the work is so that we're working in pairs. We're often just doing it alone, so, yeah.
Well, that scares me a little bit in terms of the required focus for that length of time. But also being a graphic designer on computer, I worry about making mistakes on a 4x8 sheet of paper, and maybe that's stuff that you cover in the fundamentals course. I don't know, and how to not make mistakes or.
It's a bit of both. I mean, you kind of learn as you go how to do the. I just really reassure, and yeah, I do cover it in that course, but I'm happy to talk to it now. The first thing I show people is white labels. White labels are your friend. And I actually like as a process lead, I intentionally will make a mistake sometimes in the first 5-10 minutes because I'll show the group what happens when a mistake is made and how easy it is to fix it. So you have these different sizes of white labels, right? Just your regular labels you get from a stationery shop. Right. And all sorts of sizes. Some sizes, will fit a word. Some sizes will fit a whole bunch more, right? And you just take a white label and stick it on top and write it again.
Yeah, I think that's why I was on about the tablet. It's just because it's easy to erase and that sort of thing. But I certainly have seen evidence of the 4x8 sheets and how impressive it is to have somebody doing the big thing in front of you. So it just scared me about the potential mistakes in front of a group of people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It gets easier as you go along and it happens. And there's also things you can say at the beginning of how you express what the role is. And it's different when you're recording versus you're facilitating because it's much more open and interactive and co-built when you're facilitating. But when you're recording, I will coach my recorders to say a little spiel at the beginning because people are never going to hear from you except for that. So explain the work, and I suggest, and it depends on the person, but you'll say something about, sometimes my spelling can get creative and make a joke out of it, and I know that's painful for some people, who's a teacher, right? And it's hell when you go in and work for school groups, right? Because they're watching every single word. But get them to be your spell checkers, right? And say, here's the little stickies, write down how it is supposed to be spelled, stick it on top of the mistake, and I'll fix it afterwards. So it loosens it up, and more and more, the field has changed. I mean, I've been in it for 2 decades now, and I do more of the process-oriented work. In the last 5-6 years, more and more illustrators and designers have definitely gotten into the work. And, that's up the ante for some of the more kind of performance-oriented side of things with the graphic recording. I personally don't think it should be that way where it becomes this big artistic competition. I think it's really supposed to be about meaning, right? And I hear kind of the buzz on the other side of it from clients is like, yeah, that's pretty or that's cool looking, but it didn't really give me the useful information or the gist of what was going on. So, some artists are very good and are good with content too, and others are just, you know, doing an elaborate wowie. And some clients, that's all they really care about. They're okay to have an elaborate wowie, and it's another element in the room, right? So, yeah, so it kind of sorts itself out. People will invite you back if they like what you're doing, your interpretation, and how you sift the information to the level that they want it sifted or not. Yeah, and what their motives were in bringing you into the room. That's for the recording. It's different when you're in process work, right? There's other things going on there, but with the recording, sometimes it's really is about entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to answer those questions.
Yeah, you're welcome. And are you in Sydney? I think I know you from Facebook, so you're local. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Are you in Sydney?
I'm not in Sydney. I'm in Victoria, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm around, and I've watched your Facebook thing for a while, and actually one of your students, Lisa, I guess I forget her last name, but anyway, she did
a couple Lisas in town that I've trained. Yeah.
I think I met both of them actually, and they both did something at the hotel I live in Sydney, and that's how I first heard about it, and they told me about you and that sort of thing. So I just I've been grateful for a chance to hear a little bit more about it, and you know, maybe look at taking that course in June.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Well, nice to meet you this way.
Yeah.
This is Bruce. I tried my hand at graphic facilitation about 5 years ago in a community setting, and at the time it seemed like it was pretty much a novelty. I'm just wondering what the trend is. Is it becoming more common now?
Graphic recording? Yes, it's becoming much more common, but it's still a niche, right? It's still it's funny because things start in kind of concentric and then they spread out. So I was there in the hub in San Francisco where it first originated, and so I've seen it spread. And then I moved to Canada, and it's, you know, I was instrumental in helping spread it in Canada, because there was literally, you could count them on your hand in terms of practitioners who were here 12 years ago. So now I'm getting, you don't know where all these folks are who are here on this webinar, but they're from around the world. So it's the more metropolitan areas it hits first, and then it kind of cascades out from there, right? And kind of the more, I hate to use the word developed, but anyway, that's kind of common parlance, but the developed world, and now it's spreading out into more the undeveloped world and, you know, third world. So it's been fascinating to see this cascade. So in my opinion, it's hugely growing, and it's growing rapidly. And I have people in North America who are in very small communities, and they know about it, and they're getting trained on it. And so that says to me, wow, you know, I just did a private training in Regina last year, right? So that was an education for me, because I've always mostly been in bigger, Victoria maybe not so much, but previously metropolitan areas, right? And process work gets done there. Well, it's getting done on the prairie, right? And it's, with a real education, it's getting done well, and people have thriving practices, interesting practices. They do it in different ways, and they do it in the city. So they combine it with other things as well. But it was a real eye-opener for me that in what I consider our rural place, it's you know, growing and getting known, and they're developing it and having the same results because it works. I mean, this stuff would not keep, it still wouldn't be known after 20 years if it didn't have anything to it, right? It's not saying that every practitioner or every way it's being applied is appropriate or correct or useful. I don't think that's true, but there's a lot of people who are doing really good work, and it works, and it begets more work. And it's fun and it's fulfilling. So it's not just about the work and the money side too, right? There's also an aspect for people who are yearning to be more creative and to bring in a fuller expression of themselves and live their lives in a more balanced way. So, you know, that's the value as well as, you know, being able to earn a decent living around it too. So where were you when you saw it, and why? How long ago was that? Or
well, I don't know if you've heard of the transition town movement, but I was part of it in Seattle about 5 years ago, and we did a kind of an initiating meeting. We had about 200 people in a community center for a day, and I was one of the organizers, and I wanted to try my hand at it. So I got a book and looked at, saw some examples, and just gave it a try. I've got a graphic background, so I can draw. It was very challenging, very intense, but I liked it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, people catch the bug. So what are your next steps? What are you going to apply it to?
What am I going to apply it to? Well, I want to take your course, planning to take it, and I'm just now getting into a coaching program in Edmonds, Invite Change, with Janet Harvey, and that's going to be about an 18-month program, and I see it as a framework for doing lots of different things. I don't want to spend all the time on a computer or on the phone. I have a background in facilitation, and I'm not exactly sure what all form it's going to take, but I see the visual thinking part of it as being also really core to what I'd like to do.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen Bruce. I know we were emailing a little bit back and forth. I mentioned it at the beginning of this webinar. I've done another 90-minute webinar on the fuller aspects. You're just hearing the visual coaching aspects here, so you have connections to those other aspects. So I would really, when you have some time, go check out that other webinar, because you're going to hear more about the process work with groups, right, which you already are connecting in. The graphic recording and the graphic facilitation, you're going to see those kinds of examples. And what I know from you, from our interactions so far and what you just said, is you actually have the possibility to play in all 4 applications, right? This was just one application with the process work with individuals, but you can do the groups, you can do the scribing, which you jumped in and did, and you can do the studio work. And I do all those too. So, and that's been my career trajectory as I've gone along here, and I like that. I like having the variety.
Yeah, I just see it as a portfolio of stuff to do.
I think I heard someone else pop up there. Sorry if I cut you off. Who was that?
Well, it might have been me. I was just at the risk of sounding lazy. Once we take the course, do you facilitate any sort of liaise between people who might be better at the process, people might be better at the graphics, or even customers? You know, getting work once we've completed the course, or
we cover the business and marketing to some extent in the fundamentals course, and then there's a whole other program I have that gets into that much more detailed. What I also have, I mean, yeah, you do have to. At the end of the fundamentals, you're going to create a game plan, right? So part of your game plan is going to be start networking and reaching out to who you know. Everybody starts wherever they are, and everybody's got some sort of network and some sort of next steps that they can reach out to, and that's where it always begins, is figuring out what are yours and start taking them. I do have what's called the Interactive Visuals e-community. So all the people they care to who've graduated from my visual skills programs, they're sent an invitation, and it's an online community. I use Ning. I don't know if you're familiar with Ning, but we have a Ning community. It's like a big Facebook group. And that's brought together a bunch of grads, and there's definitely those kinds of collaborations. People might get wind of work, and they'll say, hey, there's an opportunity in Toronto, or hey, I'm in Victoria, and we're looking for this. And so you contribute to that, and you benefit from that. And
right.
Yeah. And I have something called a preferred partners network too. So as people get their skills up to a certain level and they keep in touch with me, right, that's the biggest thing, is for me to just know who's doing what and where you're at right now, right, and what are you looking for, because all sorts of things cross my desk. And because I'm running the school now, I don't have the same availability that I used to. I can only do group work on Thursdays and Fridays usually, right? So I'm not traveling and taking those kinds of jobs. So I refer them out to my preferred network.
Right.
And that's part of the networking too, is getting out and meeting other practitioners. And yeah, some people think of it as a competition kind of thing, and there can be that aspect, but my experience has been that you get a lot of your referrals from other colleagues who know, like, and trust you, right? And if you've got a certain skill that they don't, then that comes in handy. And you tend to have these powerhouse days where, for whatever reason, you're already booked on mid-month, and then, of course, other clients want you on mid-month, right? So then you go, I'm not available, but here's a couple of names. And those names do the same thing back to you. So it tends to work out in the wash. And different clients prefer different people, and there's nothing you can do about that, right? You just have to be who you are and do your thing and trust the process. And some people are going to prefer, if you refer to someone else, they may refer that person over you after they're introduced to them. Oh, well, but the same thing might happen the other way for them when they refer stuff. So,
Right.
yeah. Let me just check with a couple of other folks here who haven't heard from. I'm going to check with David. David, how's this landing for you? Were there any questions or comments if you're still trucking with us? And let's go to ask Michelle the same question.
Hello.
Michelle, hi. Yep.
Hey. Just interested in listening along, and I just sent you an email. I want a little bit more info about the combo package because I've already signed up for the fundamentals, but I won't take their time from other people away from that. So thank you for the work today. It was really interesting to dive into some of the other offerings that you have.
Cool. You're welcome. Yeah. Just in a nutshell, write me. We basically apply what you've already paid towards the combo, if that's the route you want to go.
Okay. Sounds good.
If you've done the deluxe, so some people do the deluxe where it has 3 coaching calls with me. We don't count that $500 because I'm already delivering that with the coaching. So we'll just minus that out if you happen to have the deluxe, and then the bulk of it goes towards the combo.
Okay.
Usually ends up saving people a little bit more.
Christina, I have a question.
Yeah, Lori.
Yeah, can you just describe what is, so I've done Shift It twice now as the personal process. And can you just describe what's it like in the coaching program? Like how does it differ when you're teaching the process versus people, and facilitating the people to do it themselves?
Well, there's a bunch of different things, but hold on, there's a little feedback, so I'll just mute your line for a second, and I'll come back to it. It's much different to be in it than to hold the space and the container for it. So I'm basically rolling up the screen, so to speak, and talking about what am I doing intentionally when I'm doing what I'm doing in those containers that you've been in. Some of it you might be aware of, some of it you might not be aware of. And also, there are common ways that people can react, right? As you work with different people, and you're a coach already, it varies greatly in terms of how people can go through a seemingly similar process. So that's part of what I share too, is just things to watch out for, things to be aware of, what to do when a person has this reaction, what happens if they go here, what becomes an alternative, right? Different options people can try. And it's just a big part is structure, just having the structure and the community for people. You may not be nervous about it because you've been around visuals for quite a while, but people who are seasoned practitioners otherwise, they can have their bugaboos too, right? So it can be intimidating, and they're looking at my work, they're looking at other people's work, right? And they're judging themselves usually harsher than anybody else would. So there's soothing that goes on, there's reassuring, just to kind of help them keep taking the steps. And the only way out is through with learning anything. It's kind of back to Tom's comment about being afraid of making the mistakes too. When you're learning something, you're going to. You're going to afterwards too. So what to do when you make one? How did you get yourself out of it? You listen to other people who made one or had something happen, and you learn from that. So there's a lot of sharing that goes on, and with the Ning Forum, you know already from Shifted Online and how powerful that Ning Forum is. So same thing when you go through a bunch of colleagues from around the world, from various backgrounds who are learning to hold this container, right? There's a full container of Shifted. They might be also developing their own containers. Once you know how to put people fully through Shifted, then you can play jazz, and that's a different kind of container, right? Like, how do you blend this stuff with other things? What if a person doesn't like this and they want to do that? Well, go here instead, skip that and go here. So there's a lot of jazz you can play. So all that experimentation happens. It's really incredible, the changes from start to finish, and the confidence that develops, and again, the only way out is through. So by forcing people are forcing themselves because they've bought the program, right? But it creates that structure and that support to do it and to go through those changes and to get where they want to with their competency and capability.
Thanks. I was just so interested in what your response would be. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's growth going on. It's different when you're in Shifted because it's really intense growth, right? You're in that yourself. It's personal development growth. But now you're creating a container for that, and that's new for a lot of people. It's a different way to coach. Sometimes it's much deeper. It's emotional. Some people are more afraid of emotion because they've been doing more business coaching or whatever it might be. So it's like getting comfy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the working online and in coaching and one-on-one with people, I've had a lot of experience in the past, probably 5 years, doing team coaching, leadership coaching, and facilitation in large groups, doing that kind of thing. And I always took a little bit of what I learned in fundamentals and used it to help that process, but I never did it. So I've had tremendous experience with the people, the structure, the process. And, you know, quite frankly, I'm terrible at the wall. I'm absolutely terrible. And it hasn't been for lack of effort. So I've just decided to accept I'm not a graphic person. I have deplorable spelling problems. I think faster than I can write, and it makes my writing almost unlegible. So I've just I've decided to stop fussing about trying to be good at it because I've put the time in. So now I'm really you know, I just feel like my skills are much more suited to this working online like this and working one-on-one. I've had a 10-year coaching practice now in my home for career, and I used I have a process that I work freeform, but I never kind of give those papers to the people because it looks like a chicken ran across the page, so they, you know, they can follow it. So I've started to just accept where I am. And
you know, Laura, you might want to think, I mean, I get that, and that's kind of one level of it too. Like, yeah, if you're going to do this yourself, you have to develop decent handwriting because people do need to read your stuff. But what you might want to think about is typing fonts.
Yeah, and that's a little bit why I'm more attracted to this this way of working, because it did give me anxiety trying to be somebody that I'm not,
Right.
you know, and yeah, but I'm really have a lot of experience in the process, facilitation, emotion, business.
You know the power of the templates though too, right? Because that's
Yeah.
the nice thing about templates too, is all the drawings done for you. Yes,
Exactly.
you do have to write, but if you can get around using the typewritten font, which you can when you're working online, depending on which program you're using.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, are we there? Anybody else have any other questions? That might be it. Happy to take them if there is. Going once, going twice? Okay. We'll sign off. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Thanks, Christina.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye now. Bye-bye.